Level Up activities for remote learning. We are honored that you are spending time with us here today. If you're watching this recording and need the slides, you can see the link to the slides right here on the screen. We are so honored to have Kris here with us today. He is truly, boy, how do you describe Kris? He comes up with activity solutions and amazing tips and tricks that will completely blow your mind. So if you are someone that is just getting started with Seesaw, this will be a lot of inspiration for you. If you're already using Seesaw, this is going to also inspire you to try new things right away. So you are going to leave this session today with very clear tips and ideas that you can try. And Kris, take it away. We are so honored to have you back with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Angela, and welcome everybody who's here. I so appreciate the opportunity to be here sharing with you guys. Before I actually start, I just want to give a huge thank you to the Seesaw team. They've absolutely done an incredible job with getting us onboarded and getting everybody in basically the world prepared for what we're dealing with right now, because we're kind of in these uncharted waters. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Seesaw for being on the forefront of that. And just kind of reiterate what Angela said is that we're kind of all in this together. So there are some slides in here where my email is on this and my Twitter handle is on there. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you guys have questions, because you know we're all in this new world together right now, and it's really important that we kind of rely on what we can do together as a group rather than just living in all of our silos. So I'm just going to say that before I get started. My name is Kris Szajner. I am an elementary technology integration specialist for Prior Lake Savage Area Schools. We're a district of about 9,000 students in Minnesota. Before I stepped into this role, I was also a kindergarten teacher, just like Angela, and I loved every second of it, but I also love every second of this job too. There is a little link there at the bottom for some of these activities that that Angela also shared on this too. So if you didn't get that earlier, you can also get them here, okay? Here is kind of our goals for today. The number one on here is that we want to demonstrate some easy wins for blended learning. And really what that whole core of this is, I'm going to show you a lot of ideas today. And if you walk away with one, that's amazing. If you walk away with 15, that's even more amazing. But I want you just to kind of see some easy ways that you can level up your activities for remote learning. That's going to be this learning at home. I am sharing multiple ideas, obviously, and my most important one here is how do we stay connected with our students? I'm going to share some ways that could be some best practices for you, but as we start to be away from our students, how do we make sure that that relationship is still there? Because you know that's super important for a lot of families, and especially our families who maybe don't have the best home lives at home. And if we can make that better by changing the way we do activities, great, that's a huge win, okay? Here is one other little thing before we get going on this is like safety and signing in. If you haven't yet seen what Seesaw has brought to the table, follow their lead. They know so much about how to make sure that everything is safe and that you can sign your kids in the right way. So please just go to their remote learning resources for families, grab all of their resources on there and just ask questions of them, because they're going to do a phenomenal job of making sure that everybody is safe and everybody is onboarded, okay? So before we jump into the first actual topic, here is a tweet that I sent out a few weeks ago, and I'm going to focus the first 6 or 7 ideas here on basically two like tools that Seesaw has, the microphone and the camera. And I think that these are 2 extremely powerful tools that are very easy for students to access. That's why I'm choosing to do these, okay? So without further ado, we're going to start with the camera. This, in my opinion, is your bridge between accountability and rigor for what actually happens at home. Here is our first idea, an easy win for you, is this is just a simple check-in for your students. So this is an activity template. If you're somebody who's following along on the slides, which again are right up here, you can actually click on this, and this is the activity you can grab and put into your class. But this is just a simple check-in for kids. I feel like a superhero today because, and they can use this right here to take a picture, drop it in this spot, and then share. Why do they feel like a superhero? You know, I feel like a superhero because I was able to read 2 chapters out of my story today, or whatever they're going to share. Or I helped my parents make breakfast. A really fun way to get a little perspective into what's happening at home, and also kind of boost up their morale while they're a little bit further away from us. Here is another easy win. Again, you can click on this to get it. Now, this is just kind of a way to get a perspective on what's actually happening with them. So this one's called a snapshot of me. So they would take a picture of themselves and they would replace these two words right here, like I am thinking about my math homework today. The things that I'm saying are, thank you, Mom, so much for helping me get onboarded with all of my fun stuff I have to do for this. So the students are literally replacing their thinking, their saying bubbles with an actual picture and things that they're actually thinking and saying. So I'm gonna actually click on this just so you guys can see how this works. Again, if I just click on these pictures, it's gonna take me right to Seesaw where I can actually save this and put it into my class. So it's super, super slick, super easy. Hopefully you guys are following along on this too. Here is our next one, and I'm gonna actually show this. So this is one of my favorite easy wins that's here. And this is a blank canvas for students. I called it a snapshot of my day, but if you read the directions here, it says, click on add response, use the pen to put a title on your page, and then fill this out with 3 different pictures. So we're literally gonna give the freedom to the students to say, you know what, I want to take pictures today of my cat, or I want to take pictures today of this music that I wrote for my music teacher. I want to take pictures today of this cool thing that I built with Playmobiles or with you know, Duplos or whatever they have at their fingertips. So this is just a great way to get some freedom in our students' hands, but also have some accountability. I'm like, yeah, like I love to see what's happening in your house and what you're doing on a daily life, and this is going to give me some of that perspective. Okay. Let's move on to the last idea for our camera, which is right here. So this idea actually came from a 1st grade teacher in my school district, and she's like, I saw this thing and I want you to remake it, Kris. So I did, and this is kind of what it looks like. And I'm gonna make this one actually live for you right now so you guys can see this process, because you might be looking at some of these and say, that's cool, but how do I actually make one of these things? So I'm going to show you that process from start to finish. So I'm here in Seesaw. I'm going to actually back all the way out so I'm in my class. I'm going to go up here to add and click assign activity, because we literally want to start from nothing. So I go over here to create a new activity, and let's title this colors around my house. Directions, click on add to take photos of, I don't know if that'll work, of your colors. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. I'm going to go down here to template. And again, we're starting from scratch. So I'm going to just click drawing and use my blank canvas that we have here. So I'm going to just quickly throw in some shapes to be our background colors. I like to use this little rounded corner one for a landing spot for all of our images. And we'll make this white so it actually disappears, but we'll change our background right now to be a fun dark color. Here we go. So we have our first landing spot kind of made. I'm just going to duplicate this. I am on a MacBook, so I'm using Command D. If you're on a PC, I believe it is Control D. You can also just copy paste, or you can right click on this. Oops, right click. I'm missing right here on the 3 dots and go duplicate. That's the one. Okay. What I'm going to do, since I kind of have this canvas set, is I'm going to just add a color to them. So let's call this first one red. Oops. Like this, and I'm going to change the style just like that. Okay, we're just going to do these top 3 just so you guys can see the whole process. Blue, and the last one can be green. Now I can go like this and change these colors to match. This would be, oops, that was the wrong one. This would be a little bit easier, especially for our young learners to see, like, maybe they don't know how to read these color words. So this is going to help them. The final thing I'm going to do is I actually found this cool little camera PNG image from the internet. I did not make this. This is something else's. All this allows me to do, and it allows students to also have a really easy access into what they need to do. So this literally is saying, like, use the camera to take a picture and drop it right here. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Just for demonstration, we're going to stop it right there. That's it. Okay. So that is a process you can take to actually make an activity like this for counting around the house. You could change this to be like numbers around the house. You could change it to be sight words around the house. Anything that you want to relate to your students quickly taking pictures in your homes, okay? Oops, I clicked the wrong button off to the side. Here we go. The second big milestone was using our microphone. So we did all of the camera. I showed you quickly how to build an activity using the camera, but now we're going to talk about the microphone. For me, this is my window into what my students are actually thinking. It's a window into their mind because, especially coming from the kindergarten perspective, they're going to make a ton of mistakes typing on a keyboard, whether this is an iPad keyboard or whether it's an actual computer keyboard. And so if I can give them an easy window into telling me what they're thinking by just clicking the microphone button and saying it, I'm going to give them that opportunity, because that's a huge win for me as a teacher, and it's a huge win for the kiddos as they're at home. Here is the very first idea that you can click and grab. This is a fun one that just talks about counting. Now, this right here looks funny, but I'm going to click on it and show you what it actually looks like in Seesaw, because it's going to get even better if I save this. And we let it kind of load in our library. Here we go. Let's actually assign it. I'm going to show you like exactly what this looks like for kids. Here we go. Add response. So here is why this looks this way, okay? So backing this up, it looks like that arrow is pointing to nothing, but when you open this up as a template, it's pointing directly at the microphone. So this is like a foolproof way for your young learners to actually know where to click and what they actually need to do. So they would click here, talk, talk, talk. Actually, they're counting, counting, counting. When they get done counting or make a mistake, they would pause it. They would use their pencil or pen and they would write the number, whatever they stopped on. I got to 17 today. Holy cow, that's a great number. Or anything like this, really fun and cute, okay? So that is the design of this actual activity. So instead of, like in the last one, I used some squares, I just used an arrow and pointed it over to the edge like that. So that is how this one kind of functions. It looks funny like this, but when you actually give it to students, it's going to point right at the microphone. So that's idea number one. Idea number two has to do with science, because everybody in the whole world loves science. This is supposed to be a way of capturing an experiment of your students. So this actually has 4 different slots for you to take pictures on it, along with an opportunity for you to explain it using the microphone. So
Hey,
if you want
Kris.
to talk about an easy way to actually access the science and the thinking behind all of those, this is a great way to actually do that.
So Kris,
Okay?
before you jump in, I'm
Yeah,
going to just interject for a second, because
please
we're
do.
getting so many questions, and this was asked last time. They're like,
Please.
how do we get those cameras to appear on the screen right there like that? So basically, Kris has saved that as an image. So he is adding those as images. So basically like a photo. So anything that you can save on your computer as an image can go to Seesaw on the campus. So that's how he has those there. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Kris.
Absolutely. No, I'll just quickly demo that again. I am on my computer, so I'm dragging and dropping, but if you're over
Yep.
here on this little camera
Yep.
option, editing, you can also upload something,
Yep.
and it's going to say, where do you want to upload it from? If I'm on my iPad, I
Yep.
can choose the device that I have, or I can just choose the actual camera image, and that's where I found it from. So, awesome.
So he's including that as kind of another visual support for students to know that they're going to put a picture in each of these boxes. So they're going to go to that camera tool in Seesaw on the left panel, and they're going to put their own picture in that box to replace that, camera icon.
That's correct. Awesome. I'll keep on chugging if that's okay. Let's go back to present. Awesome, awesome. The third idea here, and the one that I'm going to start to kind of pull apart a little bit, is another great one for reading. The book I read about was this. So students are taking a picture of the title, and they're choosing the microphone to actually read aloud the story or retell the story. So what I'm going to do is actually add this to my library. I'll close out of a couple of these. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to level up this idea. Like I'm going to take this one and I'm going to even maximize this even more. And I'm going to show you that process right here, okay? So I have the activity. Now, whether I made this or somebody else makes it, you can go down here to the 3 dots and you can actually copy and edit the activity. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to level it up. I'm going to make it even better than it already is. So I'm going to go down to edit the template. And I'm going to just add 1 page on here. Now, I like the way this looks and feels already, so I'm going to go over here to the 3 dots and just duplicate the entire page, just like this, okay? And I'm going to change the title to be my favorite part of this story was ... And we're just going to leave it just like this, okay? So not only do I have a page for students and a response for them of like, what was your book? Tell me about it. But also tell me about what your favorite part of the story was. Tell me about this. Show me a picture of that page. You could continue this and say, what was the main character of the story? Where did this story take place? You could build like a 5 or 6 page activity that relates to one story that's going to allow for a pretty rigorous activity for our kiddos and pull out some great essentials for you as a teacher on what they understand about their reading. So that is the final example actually for our microphone. We're flying through this, which is good because I actually want to get to some of the best ideas I have on here, like this staying connected section, which in my opinion is super, super important for us to be able to have a way to use activities to check in with our students on their mindset and their well-being. I always try to keep that in the forefront, and that's something that I try to coach teachers in doing because we don't know, we can't see their faces every day, and we can't actually like give them a hug, a physical hug at least. And so how are we maintaining that relationship and that check-in with our kiddos? If you're on the presentation, this link down here is for just an Edutopia article that just talks about this a little bit. If you want to read, that's totally an option. But I'm going to show you 3 examples of how this could look as a Seesaw activity. So here's idea number 1. Today I laughed about. Okay, what did you laugh about at home? What was funny? What cheered you up in your classroom? If you're somebody who's really nerdy about like colors and what they actually mean, like color meaning, like yellow has to do with laughter and happiness. That's why I chose that one. But that's just, that's kind of the nerdy part of how these can be designed, is that, trying to include little things like this of like, yeah, let's be cheerful about this page. Tell me about what you laughed about. Maybe take a picture of it. Maybe it was some funny meme. Tell me about it. I want to hear from you as a kiddo. So this is one that's a great way to check in with your kids. Here is another one, again, trying to match colors with feelings. Caring has to do with like pink and like reds. I felt cared about today when, here is what it is. So I, again, concluded an opportunity for the microphone on here, but the students, instead of taking a picture, they would just write on this canvas. They would use the pen tools and they would be able to actually write on this. And I'll show you the difference in how I wrote this. So the directions say they click on add, click on the microphone to tell me your story, and then use a pen to either draw a picture or to write the story out for me to give a little easier access and to give a different change up rather than taking pictures every single day and using that as they go. Okay, we're going to go on to the next and final idea here for our connected. So this one is just, I feel like a leader when I did this. Again, this is a fantastic perspective for you to actually hear. How are your students feeling like leaders when they're at home? Maybe they helped their mom and dad cook something. Maybe they helped their little brother or sister with their homework. Those are things that maybe we wouldn't know unless they actually shared that with you. And it'd be awesome for you to turn back on the students and just say, I'm really proud of you for doing this, because this showed me that you can be a leader no matter where you are. And I'm proud of you for that. And that right there, that connection that you're still maintaining through a digital world is priceless, at least from the parent perspective. Okay, so we are on to step number 4, and this one is probably the most important for me, at least right now, where our teachers are kind of at. And this is going to demonstrate some best practices for how you can truly level up some activities. What this essentially is, this lesson recording, is how do you use Seesaw to record mini lessons for your students? so that you can basically create activities that are like one-stop shops for all of your kiddos. So I have 3 quick demonstrations that I'll hopefully get through, and then we'll finish up with just one little low-tech activity on this one. But this is our first one. I'm going to click on it and go straight into the actual editing of this one, because I want to actually show you how to host mini lessons for your students. So here is our activity. Now I cheated and I already kind of started it, but I'm going to click edit. Well, we'll click copy and edit, I guess. And I'm going to click right here to actually show you. But actually, before I click, when you are designing mini lessons, when you're going to record a lesson for your students, this is a really important thing on here, is that you want to make sure that you put this mini lesson in this slot right here, which this is that multimedia or example slot. The reason why is that if I put it down here in template, my students would just be listening to me for their actual template and have nothing to turn in. So I would have no like accountability on what did you learn? What kind of things did you take away from this? That's why you want to put it here. So this creates like a clickable and a video that you can actually listen to if you put it in this slot. So I'm going to click this and show you what I put together. This is just text boxes. These are little squares and these are counters. Now there is another version here. If you're somebody who likes to find the best workflow, if you wanted to just use one of these big base 10 sticks like this, you can make one of these 10 frames really, really fast by just dropping it in, and you have like a 10 stick that's super big and basically a 10 frame for you. Okay, so that's just a little cheat, a little workaround for you if you guys want to do that. What I did is I went the hard way and made individual squares. But how you would actually host the mini lesson is, once I have all of my pieces built here, I'm going to click this microphone. And once I do that, it's going to listen to everything that I say. It's also going to record everything that I move. So I'm going to do just a really fast demonstration because I want it to upload quickly. If I click this, it's going to give me a countdown, 3, 2, 1. Hey students, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about addition. We are going to do the math problem. Let's do 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 2. What I can do with this is actually take and move these two up to the top. So I'm going to move them and then X them out so I can find my total of 8. So our total is 6 plus 2 equals 8, okay? Pretty quick. Not a super great example if you're actually going to use this, but I wanted to just show the process. So I'm going to click done. Actually, before I do, if you see this in the top right corner, you get 5 minutes, and that's 5 minutes per slide. If you see over here, you can have multiple slides for your demonstrations. So that's 5 minutes per slide that you can actually record. Today we're going to talk about addition. We are going to do the math problem. Sorry, I clicked the preview button accidentally. What that would do is create a movie right here that's going to allow your students to listen to you. They can see the mini lesson, and you still have the opportunity to put in some templates for your students. So if you had like a PDF of addition worksheets, you could just take those and drop those right in right here on the upload button. If you had some other activities from a different site that you wanted to do, you could add those in here as well. But this is your way to create a one-stop shop for students that includes a mini lesson, that includes templates, that they are going to do all of their learning in one place. That's going to save them a bunch of time and save you some time too as you're starting to design your distance learning. Okay, so that was the first example. I'm going to skip over this one and go on to this reading one, because I think this one is probably my favorite out of all of these, and I want to quickly demo this one for you guys as well before we move on to the low tech activity. So I'm going to click save. Again, I kind of cheated and started this for us. Let's go over here. Oh boy, we're opening a bunch of windows. Okay, we'll go here to save just once. There we go. And we'll kind of let this load in our library. Pro tip, like $1,000,000 tip, if you take anything away from what we're learning here today, I want you to take away that trick of 5 minutes per page. And the reason why is that what I can do is I could have a page that looks like this, blank page, and I could just call this like recording 1 or whatever. And I could read aloud to my students. And what happens is that when we read long books to students, the 5 minutes runs out really quick. But what you can do, since you get 5 minutes per page, is you say, guess what? This page is recording 1. This page right here is recording 2. The next page is recording 3 or whatever. And you can basically create a chain of recordings that's going to allow you to take almost as long of a recording as you want, because you get 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of recordings. Like, that's a really long time for you to be able to give something to your students. So you could read aloud to your students. You just have to be a little bit careful about recording per page as you start to build your mini lesson. Okay, so that right there is your $1 million tip. That's something that I've been sharing just recently, so it's new to me, and it's new to all of our teachers. But you guys just got it right now, so that's pretty awesome. Okay, so here's the next one. I'm actually not going to hit record on this because I want to just show you how this could look. So we're just going to pretend. So here we go. We're going to click pretend, click, ready, set, go, click. Hey students, it's great to see you. We're going to talk today about reading. Let's read these words together. The first word is him. The second word is the. Third word is can. The last word is see. Okay. Stop recording, move on to the next one. How I built these is I went over here to the text tool. I typed in my word, this or like that. I shrunk one of the edges like this so it's kind of as small as it actually can go. And then I cranked out the corner just like that. So it basically creates like this card that's on here. If you're somebody who likes YouTube tutorials, I did one on like pocket charts that you can go look at. On the very last link of my presentation, there is that YouTube playlist that's on there too. But this is what I essentially did, is just create these little cards that students can read, or I can read to them, okay? That's how this fun little page would work. You could also create it like this if you're gonna do some phonics. So again, pretend clicking, 3, 2, 1, click. Hey, we're gonna talk about digraphs today. Remember, digraphs are 2 letters that make 1 sound. This word is chad, thad. Let's switch out our ending. Chip, ip, thip. And then pause it, stop, oops, stop it right there or anything like that. So that is how this could work for reading as well. Again, the big giant $1 million, $8 million tip on that one is, if you're going to record like a book for your kids, put it on multiple pages because you get 5 minutes per page. Again, I didn't put anything in our student responses, but if I had something, if I had a PDF, if I had another activity that was there, I could just link that right in on here, okay? The last tip I want to show on mini lessons, because this is something that that could be a little bit new to some people, is that if I had an activity that didn't have a mini lesson, okay, so let's go to one of these. Let's go to this one. So let's say we have this activity, and if I go over here to edit or copy and edit, I can already see, oops, I don't want to do that. Let's copy and edit. I can see right here that there is no mini lesson because there is no multimedia or instruction. I can add that right now, and I already have my templates built for me. Like, this was pulled from the activity library. This was actually one that I built, but if somebody else built that, I can still add mini lessons to already existing activities to create that extra layer that's really, really going to help my students down the road. So that's another great tip for you. If you're somebody who's like, I don't have time to design all my mini lessons and design all of my templates for my kids, just add one layer on there. Add that mini lesson layer, start with that, and then you can go forward from there, okay? So that is it for the specific recording of lessons. I had one more planned here on money, which is really, really fun, but I want to make sure that I can get to some questions here before we keep on moving. So the final stop that we're going to take is low tech ideas. Some people would argue that almost everything that I showed was relatively low tech, but these are trying to be as low tech as possible, because what's kind of said here is we want to make sure we're balancing what our students are doing at home. We don't want them sitting in front of a screen like a zombie all day. That's not super great for kids either. So how do we build activities that are going to allow us to bridge that gap between, you know, gaining your content through a device, but then also showing me what you actually know and understand. So this is our very first idea. This has to do with non-standard measurement, and how this would work is this is kind of like a number frame for them, but they would take a picture. Actually, I'm going to click on this because it's a lot easier to explain if we go to this. So your challenge, let's zoom in. Find one large item you want to measure. Next, find a smaller item to measure it with. So we could say for my large item, I'm going to find the couch. For my small item, I'm going to find a pencil or my shoe or a paper clip or whatever. And their goal is to use this frame over here to fill it in. So they would take a picture of the giant thing. I measured my couch or my dad or my sister. I measured them with a cube or a Lego or whatever they have. And it took 267 of them to reach the end, or whichever they fill it out with. So it's a fun way for you to engage them and get them to kind of do, you know, typically a worksheet style activity or a worksheet style learning in a fun way at home that's going to get them moving around the house. It's going to get them engaging with potentially people around them or other items at home that maybe they wouldn't have thought up in that certain lens there. So that is my first low-tech idea. We have two more, and then we're going to pause for some questions here. So this one is probably my favorite, and I'm going to show you how you can change this one up. We'll save it, and then I'll start talking about it. This is a Lego Tower challenge, and a lot of us have probably done like STEM challenges for our kids or build challenges. This one is set up in a really fun way. So the cost of building is what it's titled. The goal is to build the tallest Lego tower, excuse me, that you can. Be mindful that each Lego brick costs $1. Okay, this is all pretend stuff right now. Click on add, take pictures of your tower, write the total cost. My tower was blank inches or centimeters tall. If each Lego cost $1, it would cost $250 or whatever. So let's pretend that I am a student or I'm a teacher of like 5th grade kids, okay? And $1 is too easy. You can go in here and go like this. Let's say that we're going to say, guess what, kids? We're going to make this hard. Each Lego now costs 17 cents. So instead of you having an easy like one-to-one counting, you need to now say, well, I used, you know, 112 bricks. What's 112 times 17? Like that's some serious math skills right there. If you change the value up here, you also just can click on the template and change this phrase down here to say, if each Lego costs 17 cents, it would cost blank at the end of the day. Okay, so that's a really easy way to change that up to build the rigor for your students. You could also say, be mindful that you can only use 5 Legos. Be mindful that you can only use, you know, certain types of Legos, or whichever you want to start to challenge your kiddos in that realm. Okay, final idea. Final. Random acts of kindness. Now, when I was a kindergarten teacher, we actually had a club, like Random Acts of Kindness Club, and it was like, I mean, talk about warming your heart. So this is that idea put into a Seesaw activity here. So the goal for students is to actually complete, or not really complete, but and I did write the word complete one random act of kindness in your house. So whatever they're going to choose to do, whether it's I'm going to go and, you know, clean up the laundry for my parents, I'm going to, you know, pick up my toys without even being asked. Boy, wouldn't that sure be nice. Just some fun little random act of kindness that they could complete at home and then tell me about it. This is a great way also to kind of tug on those SEL skills, like how are you helping your family and everybody in your house to just be a little bit happier. And this is just a great way to give students a little bit of a challenge, but also then check in on like, what did that actually make you feel like? And how does that turn around for you? And how does that kind of motivate you, I guess, to maybe complete some more as you continue the rest of our time doing this potentially, okay? I am ending with this page right on here, and then I'm going to take some time for questions because we covered a gazillion things in a little bit of time, and I want to make sure I leave some time for that. So here is some other ideas for us. The number one on here, like hosting a recorded morning meeting, that has been like an absolute go-to for us as a personal family, is that our teacher does that, and it is so critical for us to, for my kindergartner, to hear my teacher's voice, to see their face, to just listen to them read a story, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So just reading to your students, recording a morning meeting, connecting with them individually, whether that's you just sending a little note to them, a little audio note, or recording a video of you saying, hey, you know what, Michael, I really miss you. I hope that you're doing so well in this distance learning. If there's anything that I can do to help you, please let me know. And then the last two on there, just being appreciative of this new partnership with our families, because it's brand new for everybody, especially our families, on how they support them and how they can, you know, be that teacher at home when you're actually not there. So just saying thanks to our families and being appreciative of them and those parents who are really bending over backwards sometimes for what we have going on. And then being mindful of kind of what's going on at home. Those are all critical things on there. So I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to stop right here and pause for some questions, because I want to make sure that I get some questions all finished out.
So many questions coming in, Kris. So get ready for it.
Let them fly.
No, all sorts of good things. So the first thing that I'm going to say is, of course, we keep using this P word all the time, which is patience. We love everybody's patience in, you know, obviously everyone's jumping into a whole new world of teaching and instructing. We are trying to help each other through this process, and we just kind of keep sharing that word, right? So we're going to hop into questions here today, but just note there's likelihood we're not going to get to everyone's question in this session. So I really want to make sure that you are aware of the phenomenal Seesaw community of teachers. So one of the spaces we're constantly sharing is in the Seesaw teachers group on Facebook. There is always conversation happening there, idea sharing, troubleshooting. We do live Q&A sessions like this webinar, actually Monday through Friday, every day at 9 a.m. So I encourage you to come to that as well. It is listed on our training site. So a couple things, Kris, and I'm hoping that you are going to feel comfortable doing some live demos. The biggest thing people want to see, if you could back up to that template, the easy one, even just with the colors in the house. If you could just demonstrate, Kris, how students get the photos into that template, that is something that is just blowing people's minds right now. So they want to see what that actually looks like how does that actually work? So if you could just show that, that would be awesome. I realize this might be like putting you on camera unexpectedly, okay, but you can just kind of share that. That would be the hot question number one to start with.
Absolutely. So I just opened a template. I don't actually have the icon on here, but students can add photos to any template that you provide them. So I'm going to click here on this little photo button as a student, and I'm on my computer. This might be a tiny bit easier on a device where I just click camera. It's going to look through my camera. Hey, here I am. It's all nice and fun. We're going to go 3, 2, 1, cheese. Well, I wasn't cheesing. Oops. Then students have the ability to just resize it and drop it right on here, just like that, so that they can submit that work to me as a teacher. Now, like I said, I am doing this on a computer. It's a little bit more clunky than if I was on a device. It's actually a little bit slicker because they go straight into the camera and it drops right in there. Like my kindergarten student submits pictures in this way every single day, and it's no problem for them.
All right. So another question coming in is, how could you test these activities out as a teacher before you share them to your students? What tips would you give for that? We know we have our friend sample student that people might not be aware of yet.
Absolutely. I will actually demonstrate exactly what you said, because that is my recommendation. Yep. So if I had this awesome activity that I built, let's pretend it's this one, I can assign this to my class. just click like this, assign to my class. We'll go check it out in our Seesaw training. And if I click here to add response, oops, it jumped me right in. Sorry, I'm gonna back out of this one. If I jump right in here, I wanna make sure that before I do this, under my wrench, there's an option for a sample student that is turned on, and it's right here. If you can see that one, enable sample student, okay? What if this is actually on, when I work on this and I turn this in at the very end, it's going to prompt me on who do I want to turn this into. So I could go in here and I could mark this up. I could draw all kinds of fun stuff. I could show what I'm actually learning as a teacher, excuse me, as a student, so I can experience what they do. And then when I hit check, depending on your sign-in mode, it's going to allow me to choose my names. Now we're signed in right now through our Google sign-in, which is why you actually didn't see names on this. So that actually, if I switch that quick, do you want me to show that again, Angela?
I think, I think it's okay. So basically, I'll just kind of explain it verbally if I can. So do you see on the right now on Kris's screen, it says sample student, right? So because what he's saying is because he's signed in, number one, as a teacher, but also number two, already in his Google account, it just knows that about it already, him already. So he's not giving an option to choose the sample student. So you can go in and it will allow you to either select sample student when you're turning in the activity, or because you're signed in as a teacher, it just knows you're already a teacher. So it's not going to go to any other student to share with, if that makes sense. The other thing that you can do, Kris, and I don't know if you actually showed this step, that you could actually only assign it to sample student if you wanted to. So when you're sharing that activity, you can actually go to edit the students that it's going to and only send it to sample student if you truly don't want. So if you click right there, edit students, you could actually deselect everybody and then just click on sample student to share that, because then it's not even going to land in any of your students' activities tab at home, if that makes sense. So that you can see it's shared with one student. It says under Seesaw training, it says one student. So then he's going to assign that to the class, and that just ensures that it's only going to sample student. So if you really truly just want to play with it as a teacher and see like, oh, what is this going to look like for my students? You could do that and share that. Just keep in mind yes, thank you, Kris. On the left, it says assign to one student in Seesaw training. So you're going to see, if you go down to the one he previously shared, it said assign to all students in Seesaw training. So if you are assigning that basically to yourself to test out, just remember you're going to need to go back to that activity in your My Library to officially assign it to all of your students after you play. So that is a great way to kind of just play around, if that makes sense. But it's always a good tip to kind of experiment with it first before you unleash it to everyone, and just, if you think they're going to be confused by something.
Absolutely.
All right. Other questions coming in. Lots of questions about, I'm going to just clarify some things about multi-page activities. So Kris was demonstrating some things with multi-page activities. In order to create multi-page activities, you do have to have the premium version of Seesaw, which Kris does have. So if you want to use some of the amazing multi-page activities that Kris has published to the Seesaw library, you can do that even if you're using free Seesaw. You just can't modify or edit that activity, if that makes sense, but your students can still respond. So that is something to be aware of there. Okay, other questions coming in. Okay, huge question that we're hearing really, really consistently is how do we get those icons in the activity? So what you do is if you go to help.seesaw.me, our help center, and search icon shortcuts, you will actually pull up the article that tells you exactly how to get those icon shortcuts to show up in your Seesaw activities. So that is definitely a pro tip. It is really helpful to have those icons in your instructions, not only for pre-readers, but also students that can benefit from that extra layer of support of having that visual cue. So these are kind of the secret codes that you have to type in It will only work if you're using any of the codes, of course, listed on this document. So that's where you'll find it, at help.seesaw.me. All right, lots of questions coming in. Let's see. Can you talk, Kris? This is a great topic to discuss in this session.
Yep.
So as a student, when they sign into Seesaw in the activities tab, Kris, can you just give a quick run through of what they're actually going to see there? And then I'm going to actually share some just pro tips.
Sure, absolutely. So that what students see hinges on what your sign-in mode is. Now, if you're signed in, let me actually go here to kind of show this, and I'll talk to them as we go. So your student sign-in mode has 3 options. The first one,
Kris, I'm going to interject for 1 second because I want to just clarify. I know where you're going with this, and I want to clarify something.
Yep.
So if you're using home learning codes with your students, or if you're using email, Google, Clever sign-in with your students, everything is going to be set up with what Kris is about to say in terms of activities disappearing. It doesn't matter how your class is set up. So just like preempting that. So if you want to just explain, Kris, kind of how the activities disappear automatically from their feed, that would be perfect.
Absolutely. So we can see here that there is all the activities. As a teacher, I see them all no matter how many students have responded to them. What happens on the student end is, let's go to this one because there's 2 responses. If students complete them, which none of these actually have, but once they complete them, once they're signed in through those home learning codes or through Google, it actually disappears from their feed. So they only see the activities that they have not added a response to. That they also disappear before you approve them. That's something that we've kind of troubleshot through also, is that even if you don't approve it, this activity still goes away for students because they've actually added a response to that.
Yep. So it's kind of like it's great in the sense that when a student signs in to their Seesaw account, it actually drops them, when they're using that home learning code, it literally drops them right into this activities tab. So they see their list of activities waiting for them. Now, a couple of things that I want to point out, I'm going to have Kris actually demonstrate. As a teacher, Kris, can you go to the green add button and then just go to assign activity? Because I want to show you something to just completely ignore. So when you are assigning an activity, let's go into the community library for a second, Kris. Oops. And what we're going to do in that community library is we're going to find an activity that we want to save. And let's just click in this remote learning first grade collection at the top. Let's just try that. So if you click into this collection of some resources that we have curated for you, Kris is just going to select one and just push the heart on one that he hasn't already saved. So he's going to save this now to his My Library. Do you see this blue bar at the bottom? The blue bar at the bottom says assign to my class. Don't touch that. Just like leave it alone right now. Because if we click back on My Library right now, and we click on that My Library tab, it is safe and sound in your My Library. Some teachers feel like if I don't hit that blue button, my students are never going to get it. But if you are, if you're like me, potentially planning your entire week, and you keep assigning those activities as you save them, what is going to happen for your students is they might have like 50 activities in their feed of activities. So you really want to be thoughtful and conscious about when you are sharing those activities and actually assigning them from My Library to your students. And then Kris, if you go back into your just activity feed there, can you show them how on the teacher end they could actually delete an activity from that feed to clear it out if for chance maybe they've already shared 25 activities to their students?
So even like especially one of these example ones, like no one sees this except me, so this is just a pain in the way. So I go down here to the 3 dots and just delete it, and I don't have it in my feed anymore. And it's my way of clearing things out so that I stay more organized. If a student hadn't responded to this yet and you do delete it, that also removes it for them as well, just so you guys know that.
Yes. The other thing, Kris, and their responses are safe and sound in the journal. So you're not deleting their work or anything like that. Question coming in can you organize activities in this stream for students? And the answer is no, not yet. So they're going to see the stream of activities you've shared to them. They will disappear from their immediate view when they have added one response to them. As a teacher, though, if you are in my library, you can actually organize your activities in collections. So you can go into your library. I don't know if Kris has any collections set up, but you can create, oh, of course he does. Here we go. So you can actually create collections to get your activities organized for you as a teacher. So Kris, do you want to just show how you did that?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna just let this load here. So what I do is go to the activity first. You have to click on it to kind of pop it out. And then down here in the corner, these three dots allow me to add it to a collection. So once I click this, it shows the collections that I already have, but this plus in the corner allows me to make a new collection if I don't already have that there. So I added it to math. I can click view collection and just kind of see what's going on here for that specific collection.
Awesome. So that is on your teacher side of things. So keep that in mind. That's on the teacher side of things.
Could I share one tiny
yes.
organization tip that I, because this is a pro tip that our teachers are working through also. That when a teacher shares out a schedule, let's pretend it's like math first and then ELA and then science, we tell teachers to actually assign their activities in reverse order. Because this way, like if I had math first and I assigned this one like last on here, they wouldn't show up in the same order for students. So like as I continue to do more, they're going to show up on the top. So if I had science last, I actually want to assign the science activity first so it lands at the bottom. I hope I'm explaining that right.
Yes, you totally are. So basically, right, you think about what you want your students to be doing first in the day, because that's going to be on the top of their feed, but that should be the last activity that you actually share to them or assign to them, because it's going to show up in that order that you shared them. So you would actually start with, it sounds a little funky, but it will make sense when you try it out and when you actually view the activities tab, because you'll be like, oh shoot, I wanted them to do this math listening center activity first. I should have shared that last, because that will visually then show up first in the stream for them. But yeah, that is a great pro tip, 100%. Okay, so can you talk, Kris, about scheduling an activity? Now, this is a premium paid feature of Seesaw, and this is actually amazing in the sense that it allows you to not totally inundate your students with, blasting them with tons of activities at one time, but it also allows you to kind of plan ahead. So you can go ahead, Kris, I'll let you explain.
So if I find the activity, it doesn't have to be one I made. And if I click on the class that I'm on here, there's a schedule button on the left, which will allow me to set a date and time when this is released. And just like Angela said, this is a great way to start to plan ahead in my classes so that I don't have to go into this every morning or every night and assign these. Especially if, like, for example, if you wanted your students to read a book every single day, and you didn't want to assign that every single morning, you can assign this multiple times as your activities so that it just kind of shows up in that morning for your kiddos. Once I set the date and time, you just have to click assign to the class, and it is now scheduled to show up. And I'll show you the difference in what it looks like here. Once I'm on here, it says it's assigned, and it's assigned on April 3rd at 10:41 a.m. That's when it's going to be released to my students, which is right now.
Right now. So do you see there's a little scheduled tab? So it says assign to class on the right, and then under that, So, and then on the right, under your activities tab, it will actually have a separate tab where you can see things that are scheduled to go out. So that's another spot to look in terms of things like, oh, I've scheduled those to go out. They're waiting right there. So. All right, so many questions still coming in. We've got about 4 more minutes. This is another huge one. And Kris, I have some solutions that I've heard, but I'm curious what tricks and tips you have up your sleeve. So one of the questions we get a lot is, how can I group my students? So when you are assigning an activity, you do have the option to edit the students that it goes to. So we do not in Seesaw have a grouping feature, meaning like you're in the red group, you're in the blue group, you're in the green group. But I have some hacks that teachers have shared with me. I'm curious if Kris has any hacks that he has shared with teachers for
Sure,
this.
sure. The one hack that I have is, and this isn't one that I've actually shared because sometimes it can be a little bit funny, is just to have your students, like the folders that you have them dump in. I like to choose folders for the specific groups. Now, what the folders allow is for me on the teacher end to go back and know that, if we wanted it to be just Buzz, Jesse, Rex, and Woody, these two are going to be in our ELA group. This allows me as a teacher to stay organized without everybody in the whole class kind of seeing that super, super publicly. Students can go back and check things by folders, but that's one way that I kind of have for organizing groups that keeps me as a teacher organized. That's about all I have for that one. Do you got a
Yeah,
different
no. So
idea?
other things that I've heard is basically would involve changing the student's display name. So you would have, I've seen some teachers that go in and they say, they put a 1 in front of one student or whatever. I think one of the things that I would, of course, caution you about is as teachers, we constantly hope that our groups are dynamic and ever changing so that, you're not always going to have a student in one group at all times. But that is what they have done in some cases where they go into manage students and then they go and they edit the student's display name to potentially have, something different at the front that signifies, what group they're in, or, maybe it's a grade. Some teachers have grade level, multi-grade levels, so like first and second grade, so they put a 1 in front of the first graders or whatnot. So that's kind of one of the tips that I've heard, but it does take a little bit of additional work for sure. So, okay, Kris, I'm going to have you go back to the slide that shares all of your contact information because we are just about at time right now. What I would like for everyone here to do is just feel free to reach out to Kris if you have additional questions. By no means have we even skim the surface of all the questions coming in. So I really suggest that you hop into our Seesaw Teachers group on Facebook if you're not there. Tons of things Kris has shared there, and he's got his playlist on YouTube of all sorts of tips and tricks, and he'll go step by step for how to, basically make all of these things come to life. But we really are so appreciative of Kris showing up and sharing his ideas and really giving us a lot to think about as we leave. I think the biggest things to remember are we want to stay connected with our students. We want to give them options to create and share what's happening in their home. And I think Kris has given some really actionable ideas for making that happen with your students. So Kris, thanks so much for coming today. And everyone else, we hope you join another session. You can simply go to our website to find some more trainings to attend. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.